Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that, but don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is actually, we're covering movies for the week of May 2nd, 2025. I'm looking at the Google Docs and I'm a little bit confused. There's going to be a couple things we're going to talk about before we get to the reviews. But for the week actually starting, I want to say the week starting Friday, May 2nd, 2025, we are reviewing the new movies Salvable, Off the Record, Bonjour Tristesse, The Surfer, and Rosario. How are you, Eric Holmes, partner in crime? What's going on?
It's a new dawn, new day, new life for me.
Right?
Feeling good.
How are you? Look, how are the steaks? How is the fermented peppers? What's going on with that? With the cooking the steaks, the peppers? What's up?
Good and good. Well, the steak night we're doing tonight, but last week it turned out. Oh yeah, we went early last time, so
right.
Steak night last week went pretty good. A little slower than usual, but still all right. And we'll see how it does tonight.
How did the sauces for the pepper, because you were doing different weird different things with the sauces, how did they turn out when you...
So I got the mix down, so it's not fermenting anymore, but still waiting on the bottles to come in.
Oh, okay.
So
I feel
once
bad.
once that happens, I'll be able to put it all in the bottles and do the thing.
Oh, do the thing. Well, you've tasted a little bit of them, right? They taste really good? They taste really...
Just the base. I haven't
right.
Yeah, I haven't mixed it up yet.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, the base tastes pretty good.
Pretty good, yes.
A little spicy, not too bad, but I think I got a higher tolerance on that than most people. That wasn't always the case, but it is now.
Eric Holmes, I will be honest. I told Eric Holmes, do not see Bonjour Tristesse this week. It's not your movie. I told him, do not see Off the Record because... Off the record. Now on the record, I saw a little bit of it and I saw the trailer and I was thinking, this movie does not look good. I'm not going to have Eric Holmes do Off the Record.
And I said, I'm going to see both of them and only those.
My goodness. I said, Eric, please see Salvable. It stars Shia LaBeouf in it. Toby Cabell. You've known him from those Planet of the Apes movies and he's a really good actor. And then The Surfer and Rosario. And you just I don't know what you did this week, but it's pretty funny. The good thing about it is, by doing that, we cover more movies this week. Yes, Eric?
Yeah. Well, The Surfer I did want to see, but I thought I had the link for it, but apparently I didn't.
Oh, really?
I thought I did, but I checked my emails and it surfed right out of my emails somehow. So
here's the good news for CinemAddicts listeners. Bruce Purkey, towards the end of this, for Cinematic, he'll have a review of The Surfer. I did a review of The Surfer as well over at sort of our sister YouTube. I have so many freaking YouTube channels. Over at the Find Your Films YouTube channel, you can check it out. I will link my review to The Surfer over there. But the bottom line is we have a lot of really good movies for you this week, in my opinion, for Friday, May 2nd, 2025. I'm going to punish Eric by not... I feel so bad. I know he would have loved Rosario, which is a horror film. I know he would have loved Salvable. But just to punish Eric Holmes this week, okay, this is not very good steak sauce or fermented peppers or very good cooking steaks. I'm just going to stop this episode right now, and I'm going to just have him talk about Bonjour Tristesse for about half an hour. What do you think, Eric Holmes? Bonjour Tristesse. Is it good?
For a half hour? I don't know that I can do that, but...
I am so excited to hear what he has to say about Bonjour Tristesse, because seriously, I told him, do not see this movie. This is not your film. I could be wrong. Now, this is sort of the done teaser. Will Eric Holmes love Bonjour Tristesse? And how bad do you feel that you didn't get to see that Nicolas Cage movie, The Surfer? Sad. Melancholy?
Yeah, a little bad about it. But
yes, and I also told him...
What to say, it was not a wash this week.
Okay, and I also told Eric Holmes, hey, Eric, we're only going to, moving forward, because we want to make big bucks for CinemAddicts, we're only going to just interview the biggest stars in the whole wide world. Like, if Elvis Presley was live, we're going to put requests for Elvis Presley, Michael Jackson, if he were alive, rest in peace to both of them. We're going to interview them.
If anyone was still alive, we would interview them.
Yes, George Washington, Grover Washington, any kind of Washington, because that's our Mount Rushmore.
Homer, not
right,
the Simpson.
Yeah, both. All Homers, anything to do with the Iliad, we're gonna do it. But no, Eric Holmes says, no, this is CinemAddicts. We want to actually spotlight indie filmmakers And before we start doing our big movie reviews this week, it's funny, our big movie reviews every week on Cinematics is for quote unquote little indie films. So we're going to get to that stuff in a second. But Eric Holmes has something even littler in a good way. Eric Holmes, what do you have for us as far as what can people see if they are maybe possibly in, I don't know, maybe Monterey Park, California this weekend? Eric Holmes, take it away.
If you're in Monterey Park, California, there's a movie theater by, you can see Sinners. But if you want to see something a little more interesting, there's a short called Creatures of Chaos. I did an interview with Asavari and Siddarth Kumar.
Okay.
And
the filmmakers, right? Are they just, what are they?
So Savari's the director, Siddarth is the producer. I get those names right. I hope I get those names right. But you'll hear the interview soon enough, and then you'll hear them say their names, and that will be the correct version.
Right.
But they did a short called Creatures of Chaos. It's a 6-minute short, not much in terms of plot. This is kind of a piece about mental health. And there's no dialogue in the short. It's all animated. And you just see these people going through their lives, and they have these weird kind of amorphous kind of creatures on them. And the creatures are kind of hindering them, taking over their life. It's basically allegory or metaphor for, bad mental health, or a burden of some sort, or a secret you're trying to keep, or anything. Like, it's pretty wide and broad. And we talked about this in the interview, but it's a really great short. This is like something that you can see probably at the beginning of like a Pixar movie or something.
Oh,
okay.
Like
something that you like. Obviously, shorts don't get wide releases, so don't expect to see this on all the IMAX screens or anything like that. But I could see this like if any studio has like a really big animated release coming out that specifically deals, that they would pair well with something like Inside Out. This would be a great short to put at the beginning of Inside Out. But this is good stuff. And have you find it at the film festival that's planned with?
Right.
Check it out after you watch Sinners again.
Right. The festival is called the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, May 3rd at 9 p.m. Pacific time at the AMC Atlantic Times Square in Monterey Park, California. Me being Asian Pacific American, I feel horrible that I have not seen Creatures of Chaos yet. Or I'm just glad that Eric Holmes, who seems to be actually at this moment more Asian American than me, actually did the interview. Very good, Eric Holmes, on spotlighting indie filmmaking and indie short.
I definitely got the American part down.
Oh,
the Asian part, who knows? My mom's whole side of the family is a mystery, but.
Well, Eric, you said it's a great film, this 2D animated short film. What made it great for you? Are you saying basically the animation itself, or the way it tackled mental health within a span of 6 minutes?
The animation style, if you watch I do not know how to pronounce Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
It's there's a science YouTube channel that's animated. I think it's called Kyrgyzstats or something like that. If you know what I'm talking about, but you also know that's hard to pronounce. But it's got that kind of sort of animation style. But it's not even just the animation style. It's just the fact that they have such a specific idea of what they want to do with this short, but they do it in such a broad way that I don't know. I can't really quite put my finger on it. It seemed like a really, they cast a wide net, but it's like a laser net, if that makes sense.
Okay, good.
It's like, how can you be so broad but be so pointed in what you're trying to get across at the same time?
Also, we have to mention co-founder Asavari Kumar is a co-founder of Supernova Design, quote, a POC women-led creative studio operating at the intersection of art, technology, and entertainment. What's interesting is, like Eric Holmes, this 2D piece spotlights mental health in an allegory or metaphorical way. After this episode, I will have to look up the words allegory and metaphorical because I have no idea what that is. Thankfully, Eric Holmes has enough intelligence to do the interviews for Creatures of Chaos. You want to say anything else before we get into our featured reviews, Eric Holmes?
I'm looking up the definition of...
Oh, look, Bruce Purkey actually feeds us the big words. Eric and I don't know very big words. We're little men.
Allegory. A story, poem, or picture that can be interpreted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one.
Oh, very good. Very
I
good.
think so allegory is a story. The metaphor is the thing, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
Okay. Hey guys, what's up? It's Greg. I'm making just a last minute change. Here's Eric's interviews for Creatures of Chaos again at the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival on May 3rd at 9 p.m. Pacific time at the AMC Atlantic Times Square over in Monterey Park, California. All right, I'll leave all that stuff in the show notes, but here is Eric's interview with the filmmakers.
Is that correct?
Asavari.
Asavari. And what's your name?
I'm Siddarth. I'm the co-producer on the film.
Okay. And you guys made a short called Creatures of Chaos, 6-minute short. I don't know. I got kind of different things. It seems like it's about kind of like mental illness, but it could be any number of things because I think it's broad enough. It could be about anything you're holding inside, whether it's mental illness, whether it's a secret, whether it's personal burden or shame, or could be any number of things. Yeah, it's a really beautiful short. What started this whole thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, to sort of your earlier point, for us, it definitely did stem from wanting to talk about mental health challenges and the shame and stigma surrounding it. Sid and I, we both grew up in India, and a lot of Asian cultures tend to have a lot of shame and stigma attached to mental health challenges or discussing mental health challenges. And there's a lot of dismissal and equating someone with mental health challenges to being someone that's weak, that's unable to function, which I think that there's a very incorrect view. And as I moved to the US, I felt like people were a lot more open in terms of talking about it, which is not to say that, it's a thing that's solved, but that's sort of like the genesis of it. And I sort of used pottery as a practice to center myself. And the original sort of Creatures of Chaos that were created, they were pottery creations. You kind of see some of them behind us right now. So for me, pottery was a practice where I was sort of dealing with my own mental health struggles and my own challenges. And I did a lot of pop-up shops where I was retailing some of my pottery creatures and had a lot of conversations with people. And they were like, what is this? How did you make it? Why did you make it? And then through those conversations, we felt like there still is a huge need to talk about mental health in open, sort of safe spaces. And a big part of destigmatizing mental health becomes, easier when you sort of have vulnerability and share it with community. So the reason why we wanted to make this film was to sort of honor, healthcare, mental health grounding practices or coping practices, and also showcase the importance of community and being vulnerable with each other to sort of help destigmatize these ideas. So for us, it came from that sort of standpoint.
Yeah, the stigmatization of that, it's definitely trending towards more acceptance. Like if you have cancer, you don't pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get rid of cancer. You have to treat it.
Right.
And even with mental health, even though it's trending that way, it's still not solved. It's still something you have to deal with. And in your short, you kind of address that because they didn't get rid of their Creatures of Chaos. They've just learned to accept them in a different way and be able to cope with them, which I think is a really great message in there.
Yeah, for sure. And I think maybe Sid can talk about this very much, our choice to leave them sort of nameless and allow space for people to project their own experiences onto them was very intentional.
Yeah, because I think to your first point, Eric, we wanted to kind of not just leave the creatures, because a lot of times it can just be a feeling, right? And it's not very easy and neat and tidy that, oh, this is such and such feeling. So we wanted to leave that space for, the audience to superimpose their own kind of feelings to, and also it's not a clean cut solution of oh, step by step, do this and you're solved. So a lot of intention went into the production side of things for how we wanted, because we're all shaped by our experiences, no matter where we are from the world, especially with a lot of, like you said, it's very topical, the subject matter, but also we wanted to leave that space for everyone to be able to take their own nuance from the film.
And I guess talking about the nuts and bolts of making this short, I've dabbled a little in animation and it's not easy. It takes a lot for one person. And what kind of crew did you have and what kind of timeline did you have? Because this is 6-minute short. And I mean, even a minute takes an incredibly long time, even with the technology we have today.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate that you appreciate how long it takes to make an animated short. And so we also me and our co-writer Shivalini, we also run an animation and design studio together. So part of making this film was, kind of understanding the production challenges where we're doing a lot of client projects, but, putting our sort of downtime towards investing in this film. But in terms of the crew, they were folks that we work with on like a regular basis. We work with a lot of artists on a variety of projects. From an art direction standpoint and a co-writer standpoint, our creative partner Shai was really heavily involved in the sort of initial stages of the film, and her background is in graphic design. So she brought like this whole sort of like collage aesthetic to the piece, which I think is very representative of how layered and fragmented the world feels when you're experiencing these challenges and how they sort of tend to get in the way. And in terms of design and animation, our character designer was Lissa Diaz, who's actually a former student of mine, which was really lovely to have her on the project. And we kind of gave her the framework that, these are the characters we created in clay, and this is how we want these emotions to sort of move and feel. And we gave her space to really like figure out what, those characters would look like. And in some ways, the design was heavily informed by how clay moves and how clay feels sort of like squishy and amorphous, and it can change and morph as you play with it, as you apply pressure, as you remove pressure. So a lot of that informed the design. In terms of animation, we worked with this artist called Catherine Dollymore. She's based in the UK, and we've worked with her on some of her previous projects. She's a really fantastic 2D animator. And she's really good at animating like blob-like characters. So we thought she would be really perfect for something like this, where the characters tend to bend and deform. And the humans also like, kind of crumbling under the weight of those characters, like bend and change shape. So there's a lot of squash and stretch. And she does a really great job with doing animated pieces that sort of defy regular human anatomy. So we thought she would be like a really great choice for this project.
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the pieces in the film also, like to your point about the production aspect, was like kind of midway we realized that we wanted to remove dialogue from the film. And so that's when we realized that, like apart from the beautiful visuals and like the striking design language that we are trying to create, the sound is also going to play a very key part. And so we were really happy to have like Wesley and his team at Sanctus just splash their dose of magic to the film. That was really amazing. So I think having a team from like, across different parts of the world really helped, bring everyone's experiences together and kind of,
and
add value to the
especially the process was like very staggered, like Sid mentioned. It was a lot of start and stop. So the total production timeline, I would say, was 2 years, but we weren't working on it continuously for 2 years.
Yeah.
So it did take a very long time, but it was not like 365 days, 24/7. So we tried to like offset it with other projects that we're doing, because this was definitely a passion
project for us. Yeah.
What was our workflow in terms of like pre-production to the final image? Because obviously when you shoot on a camera, you know what, this camera angle is not working. Let's move over here. You can't do that in animation. You have to destroy everything you did and then build it all up again. So you want to do like storyboards or some sort of pre-production. So when it comes time to do the tedious work, like this is going to be the first and last time we do this. But like, what kind of pre-production process do you have in terms of that?
That's an amazing question, because I think especially for the animation pipeline, I think it's always like the more stable, like you have everything pre-edited out and all the storyboards in place. So our original idea for the film was we wanted to do it in augmented reality. And we actually wanted to use the physical clay pieces that Asavari had created in the real world and, like have these amazing landscapes. But I think like I'll hand over to you, like how that shifted was like a very interesting.
Yeah. So we wanted to sort of do animated characters first and then sort of use like the environment around us to shoot and to bring a little bit of the live action workflow into it. But what we ended up seeing was creating a lot of visual limitations, and the film wasn't having the same kind of like visual impact that we wanted it to have. So we did something that you should never do in animation, which we took our animated characters and then we built like backgrounds around them, which is like, while I'm teaching, I'm like, please never do that, because that's like a terrible, like production decision. But I mean, in some ways, like us having to do that led us to this sort of like more collage style, like layered, fragmented type of visual style, which, we kind of had to do. Like, we couldn't draw around the characters and have it feel that way. We ended up with like a collage style because it helped both our sort of visual intention and also helped our production process. So what we ended up with was actually something that was far more true to the subject matter than we had originally set out to do. And in some ways, the process that we followed was also very similar to the process you have when you're coping with mental health challenges. You take a couple of steps forward, you take a couple of steps back, you blow everything up, you come back and you piece it back together. So in some ways, it was like very meta, the way we like executed our production process. So it's a good learning experience. But yeah, that was kind of like our workflow a little bit.
Yeah. What's the release schedule for something? It's like, I mean, I can't imagine that this is playing in wide release in theaters, but at the same time, I can see this as like a great, like, because Pixar always has like shorts at the beginning. Like, I can see this as like a great pairing with like something like Inside Out. But like, was this a release schedule for Creatures of Chaos?
I think for now, we're definitely looking at festival runs, especially community-focused festivals, and also doing like impact-focused screenings, because the larger purpose behind this particular project is to spark conversation, especially amongst communities where these are difficult conversations to have. And what we've noticed in like some of our initial friends and family screenings is that people are more likely to talk about something when it's sort of externalized and when it's not them personally, but it's sort of like out in the air. So that's something that we hope to do a lot more of. And in terms of like how we want to continue to expand on this story, we really want to do like a storybook, like a picture book, and possibly even do board games to sort of take this world building and take it to the next level and continue to have these creatures as functional part of people's lives. Like that's something that we did with the pottery as well, where these creatures are now living in people's homes and making like intense eye contact with them. So we want to take some aspect of our storytelling and bring it into people's homes.
Well, I love board games, so if you need a play tester, I'm your guy.
That's great.
But yeah, this is a wonderful short, and I hope I wish you all the success on it. Probably leave you guys with this. Just get a movie recommendation from each of you, and just something that really touches you or you really like that no one ever talks about.
Oh, wow. Movie recommendations. I feel like this is not something that everyone doesn't talk about, but it's definitely one of my favorite films. It's an old film. It's called Persepolis. And it was based on a graphic novelist, Marjane Satrapi, whose work I really love. So that is definitely one of my favorite films. It's definitely like something I like. Her fluidity between like the graphic novel medium and the animation medium is something that I really aspire to achieve with my own work.
Nice. Yeah, my niece, her teacher watched or read the book or graphic novel or whatever it was based on, and then they watched the movie for a class. I'm like, these came home and told me about that. I'm like, you got a cool teacher.
That's awesome. That's so great.
For me, again, I think mine is like a very mainstream one, but I think why it spoke to me a lot was the HBO show Succession, because again, from my background of business and, like having worked in different parts of the world, just seeing like how brutal the world of business can be sometimes, and how I think, especially again, with some of the mental health aspects of, like, because a lot of times in business, it's just like, oh, just, so you're supposed to suck it up and, like face everything. But I think what we've been focusing on as our own creative studio, like we've been creating a lot of short films around subject matter, which is, sometimes not as mainstream. But I thought that show like really handled the personal side of things along with the business side of things. Very mainstream. I don't think it's like unheard of, but like in some parts of the world, I still come across in conversations that are like, oh, I don't know about that show. So
yeah,
that would be
wild to me that people haven't seen Succession. That's pretty crazy. Yeah.
But yeah, that would be my suggestion.
I think people, and to that point, I think people forget that we're a global community now. And so like, it's like, oh yeah, everyone knows about it. It's like, no, that's an American thing. People in America don't know about that, or like,
yeah.
And every different country kind of has that.
Right. And definitely, I think like if you look at India, then other sort of like mainstream Bollywood stuff might be more of a part of the zeitgeist than, like American films, unless you're looking at something that's insane like Marvel that has like a sort of global distribution strategy.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Creatures of Chaos will have that kind of ubiquity in Yeah, we can cross our fingers.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, thanks for joining me today, and congratulations on your movie.
Thank you so much.
Eric.
Thank you for your time.
All right, now let's get to our feature reviews. All of these movies, by the way, they're not the biggest movies. They're not sinners. They're not thunderbolts, asterisk, but these are indie films that are smaller scale films that are coming out Friday, May 2nd. First off is a movie called Salvable. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited if Eric Holmes ever gets the time to watch this. Eric, tell me if you've never heard of this story before. Salvable centers on an aging boxer named Sal, played by Toby Cabell.
Nope, completely new.
He's
Never
an
heard of a movie like that before.
Aging
at all.
boxer. Sal's living, he's trying to actually make ends meet. He lives in a trailer out by the field. The field, what's interesting is in this movie, you get to see him out in the field with a trailer. And I don't know if it's a one take, but you just see as the credits start, see him walking from the trailer to very small ramshackle trailer all the way to the ocean. So he lives in a small town, which is right by the ocean, which is really nice. But again, he lives in the field. He is trying his best to his daughter is a little bit estranged. He has a teen daughter that he's very close to. He wants to be closer to her. The problem is Sal back in the day he's an aging boxer now, but back in the day, he used to be a celebrated boxer in town. All right. And now what he does is he earns extra side money being a punching bag for the newer boxers in town. And his manager, longtime manager, is played by, I don't have his name here. I think his name is Ed. I'll look him up in a second. But the movie's directed by Bjorn Franklin and Johnny Marchetta. It's in theaters, digital, and on demand May 2nd. I'm going to really butcher the name of the manager, so I'll look it up in a second. But the big star in this is Shia LaBeouf. He plays Vince, and Vince is Sal's close friend from back in the day. I won't say how they are connected. All I'll say is Vince, again played by Shia LaBeouf, is not exactly a very clean-cut and he's well-meaning in certain facets, but he has a life of crime. He's just been released from prison. But Vince, again, has a very close connection to the main character. That is the aging boxer Sal in Salvable.
You say that real quick? Did you say the Ed something?
No, it's Cosmo or something. I'm gonna look him up right now.
Cosmo.
Yeah, he's a very good
James
actor.
Cosmo.
Yeah, James Cosmo. James Cosmo plays a longtime man. Thank you, Eric Holmes. Longtime man.
I was looking for an Ed, and I'm like looking through the whole cast. I'm like, Greg, you were drunk. There is no Ed.
That's my bad. Look, I am drunk right now as we speak. No, that's off and on the record. I'm kidding about that. But Salvable, aging boxer, his best friend from back in the day who's just got out of prison, Vince, played by Shia LaBeouf, is offering Sal. He's telling Sal, hey, you need to. He's actually watching Sal become a punching bag for someone in the ring. And what's interesting is Vince, while he's watching, he puts two of his fingers on the top of the head, making like a bullhorn thing. And he's telling Sal, hey, you're a bull. You're an alpha. You're not supposed to be a punching bag. You're not supposed to. Sal's full-time job, by the way, he's also a caregiver to a local nursing home or convalescent home. Sal's just trying to make ends meet. And obviously he's trying to help support his daughter. Who has a stepdad and a new family and whatnot. But Vince is telling Sal, hey, you need to become a real boxer. You need to become a baller. And what happens is Vince is trying to persuade Sal to re-enter possibly a life of crime. So Eric, all of these, pretty much seems like a predictable movie. Or have you seen these type of movies a million times in your life or countless times in your life?
Not once have I ever seen Rocky or Southpaw or Raging Bull. Yeah. I've never watched a boxing movie or a crime movie at all. I've never even seen one movie that mixes the both of them.
I've never even, look, we're talking about words that we don't know about. Salvable, I look at as a play on words, salvageable. Is this movie salvageable? It's more than salvageable. Sal, right? Sal, oh, very good. Excellent. Play on the word Sal or the name Sal. But even though this movie seems predictable, it is actually predictable because you've seen this story possibly a bunch of times in your own movie-going experience, thanks to really solid performances by Toby Cabell. Shia LaBeouf doing an Irish accent as Vince, convincing, and he has a pretty good role in this movie. And the third act, when you see that crime and a boxing match and Sal's fate come to a head. It's really well done, very dramatically played, and it actually, I can't really talk about spoilers, but it really bookends the beginning and the end in a perfect, in my opinion, perfect fashion.
So,
yes.
Can't give one of two spoilers because I have not seen this.
Right.
Either he wins the boxing match or he loses the boxing match, but he wins something on a personal level. So the two ways these go.
Two options are really interesting. And I'm not going to say whether those options play out. I will say this, though. What may seem to be predictable and you've seen before, there are different ways, especially the way the third act just unfolds, that I found that was very resonant and really well done. So, and there's a great moment between Sal and his teenage daughter, and he's talking about taking accountability when his daughter does something that's not so very good and could threaten her fate at her local high school. That's just really well played sequence. There are a lot of really well played acting sequences in Salvable. This is a movie that really surprised me with how it was executed as a drama. You've seen it before, but sometimes when you see a movie before, as long as it's done and executed with great performances and just a solid sense of storytelling from directors Bjorn Franklin and Johnny Marchetta, you got a really solid movie ahead. And the movie, Salvable, I'm giving 3 stars, not 3 stars. I'm giving 4 stars. I was going to say 3-star banger. No, this is 4 stars for Salvable. It's in theaters, digital, and on demand. May 2nd. Yes.
Is Sal's last name in this movie Vabul?
No, not very good. Here it comes. So 4 stars for me. So
this sounds like one of those movies like you've seen it a million times. Like this, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just a really good wheel.
Yes. Yeah. So just a really good wheel. Yes, Eric Holmes. Basically, tell us what you think. If you give Salvable a shot, maybe if you're actually at home, this might be something worth purchasing for rental or purchase. And we'll see if we have links for our show notes for Salvable. If there's Amazon links, you can actually click on the link and you'll get us some pennies. Support CinemAddicts, right? Nothing wrong with our fellow CinemAddicts out there purchasing or renting and then buying and then having some of the pennies go to filter to me and you, Eric. By the way, Bruce, Bruce Purkey doesn't get any money, or Anderson. I tell you. Keep it quiet. Oh, Bruce Purkey's listening. Okay. Yeah, we can't give any money to Bruce Purkey. And Anderson, hopefully he's not listening, that I'm stealing. I continue to steal from the cat. Anderson. Oh, yeah, he's.
You can say that out loud.
Oh, Anderson's definitely not listening. But most importantly, folks, hopefully you guys here are listening, and Salvable is definitely a worthy experience. Now, I am very nervous because I'm assuming this is not a worthy experience because, like a moron, I actually looked at certain scenes of this movie called Off the Record. And by the way, that's a very stupid thing for me to do. I looked at a couple scenes. I didn't like what I saw. And I said, hey, we shouldn't.
You looked at the book's cover and you judged it.
Yes, I did judge it. There is a movie called Off the Record. It stars Rainey Qualley as Aster Gray, a rising singer-songwriter whose life takes a dark turn when she enters a turbulent romance with a rock star, a has-been rock star named Brandon Verge, played by Ryan Hansen. And I believe Off the Record centers on possibly their whirlwind romance and whatnot. Here's the thing that I did miss out, though. The standout cast includes Rebecca De Mornay, my bad, great actress, Olivia Swee, Julie Campbell, who I know from back in the day, very good actress, and Will Peltz, with cameos by ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons, Peyton Manning, and Edgerrin James. What the heck?
Cameo is freaking came out of nowhere.
Okay.
I didn't know he was supposed to be in it, and even saying it now probably won't hurt because where he's placed in the cameo is pretty damn good.
Written
like Peyton Manning, like you know how like when sports people are in like Saturday Night Live,
yes,
it's like, oh, Saturday Night Live with guest host Michael Jordan. It's like, well, this episode's gonna suck. Moving on,
right?
Like Peyton Manning's like one of those guys. Like he can pull that kind of stuff off. Honestly, Peyton Manning needs to be in more things.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not a Broncos or a Colts fan, so that's coming from me.
I used to love Edgerrin James way back in the day. Edgerrin James, one of the best running backs I've ever seen witness on the football field. He used to be, speaking of Colts, used to be a former Colt and collaborator with Colt legend, Colt and Broncos legend, Peyton Manning. It is written and directed Off the Record by Kirsten Foe. Sorry, Eric Holmes, by Kirsten Foe. In theaters, digital, and on demand May 2nd. I'm going to stop speaking because Eric Holmes has his review of Off the Record.
First of all, before I even get to Off the Record, On the record, I want this said. Talking about Peyton Manning, we need a buddy cop movie with Peyton Manning and Vernon Davis. Just throwing that out there. Throw all the money at whatever filmmaker you need to and get that going. But on the record or off the record, so this starts off as, Rainey Qualley meets, or Aster Gray meets Brandon Verge. Brandon Verge is like you say like a has-been rock star. He's kind of a big deal, at least in this world. I'm trying to think of, he'd be like a Chris Stapleton kind, not quite Taylor Swift big, but he's pretty big, that sort of thing. And anyway, so he meets up with Aster Gray, then they hit it off and, start kind of dating. And she's like freaking out, like telling her friends and her mom, it's like, oh my God, like I'm with Brandon Virgin. Like, what? You're dating a rock star. And so everything's kind of all right. And then Brandon starts like throwing sort of red flags. It was like, that's he'll be kind of a dick to Aster. And then the next day I'll just kind of go off like nothing happened. He's just like this nice, sweet, charming guy. And then as the relationship, you kind of see the writing on the wall. The relationship keeps getting worse and worse. And to the point where, Brandon keeps hanging over Aster's head like, oh, we're going to record your album. They do that pretty early on. She signs a contract. And so now as the relationship gets worse and as Brandon's true character shows up, he's kind of got her, like she wants out. She didn't want anything to do with him, but he's got like the rights to her music and everything. So he's able to kind of manipulate her in ways that she wouldn't have allowed otherwise.
So basically, this is the kind of love story that I would like, huh? I'm kidding. I'm joking. That's a joke. I'm not a bad person.
Yeah. If you like watching love stories that are that just basically full of gaslighting and wait a second, what do we got here?
No, speaking of gaslighting, I hope we don't gaslight someone who's over in the attic. That's Bruce Purkey. My goodness.
Well,
hello. What's going on?
Well, this is all off the record. So
this is off the record. What's going on, Bruce Purkey? What do you? Wait, you're supposed to be in the attic. What's going on?
What are y'all talking about? What's going on?
Okay. So you look, Bruce. I have to tell you something really bad. I told Eric Holmes not to watch Bonjour Tristesse and watch other movies. Instead, he decided to watch Bonjour Tristesse and a movie called, he's doing a review right now of Off the Record. So the movies that I thought he wanted, he went the other way, which is very interesting. So
I'm a grown man. I do what I want.
Do you love Bonjour Tristesse?
What do you think?
I mean, we're not there yet, but yeah, kind of I did.
Kind of did. Oh, what?
Okay.
All right.
You never know.
Well, we're going to get to your reviews in a few moments. Bruce Purkey, what can people expect from Bonjour Tristesse? Am I missing out? Are people missing out by not seeing it? I guess maybe.
Well, maybe if you listen to Eric, I was not feeling. I mean, I didn't enjoy what they were. It was a beautiful location with beautiful people. So if you just turn the sound off and don't listen to the horrible dialogue, maybe you'll enjoy it.
Bruce, they're French. You got to cut them some leeway.
Well, I like to have
those frogs. I eat freedom fries.
Freedom fries. I don't want to. Oh, go ahead.
Actually, were they French?
I don't know. They were coming.
Some of them were American, I think, or at least
I think so. I don't know. It's based on a French movie, I think.
It's based on a book. So it was Otto Preminger. Hey, listen, Max, we're gonna pivot. We'll come back to Off the Record. We're gonna go ahead and review.
What are you doing? What are you doing right now? What's your day looking like, Bruce Purkey?
Oh, I've been helping my kid with a report on Michigan. That's been very exciting. Other than that, I've just been running around doing life stuff. You know.
Oh, life stuff.
As I can from the attic. I mean, life stuff for me is like gathering as many cockroaches as I can and transforming into a little pie. And if I'm lucky, I get a little. He feeds me up movies once in a while, right? But the rest of the time, all I get are Naked and Afraid episodes. So I'm trying to use the tips that I get from that to like survive up there. Cause I mean, I just have like a cloth, which I wear wherever I can. And then I have to like try to make fire, catch water. It's kind of tough up there.
I have some life lessons for you that I've learned recently from movie watching, Bruce Purkey, because that's where I get my life lessons from. Since you're living in the attic most of the time, whenever you see a rat, make sure to just kill the rat, maybe to the side of maybe a wall or something,
Put
and then just put it in
barbecue
your
sauce
pocket.
on it, glaze it
But in my
on the
pocket,
rat.
yes. I have one in my pocket right now. I've been keeping it. I call it dessert.
And then when it rains around where Eric Holmes and his family lives, and if you're out, just puddle water in the middle of the.
Bottled water, yeah.
Yeah,
it's
you can
good.
just drink right from
The
the
problem
floor.
is, I've been trying. See, he's got an above ground pool in the backyard. When I sneak out, I've been trying to go out there and surf,
Oh,
and they say no locals.
oh my goodness! And see
Hey.
what you missed, Eric Holmes.
Hey, Bruce, while you're here, because I'm going to cover Adolescence a bit later, because I
Yeah.
did finally watch those. In your opinion, would that have been a better movie had it not been one take every episode? You got to actually break away from that and explore more of the story.
In some of the episodes, yes. In some of the episodes, no. I think this is going way on the weeds. But the final episode, I think, would have been better, not a one take.
Yeah.
I think the third episode really is the best with the one take because it's essentially just two people for like 90% of it.
Yeah.
It's having a conversation. So I think that one,
Like the first episode, like the opening scene is one take works.
yeah.
Break away from that. Edit after that, right? Like, because like my biggest issue with that is like, this is a gimmick. Like the one take thing is not helping the show. Like there's aspects where it does work, but for the most part, like if we're following someone down a hallway
Right.
for 30 seconds, that's 30 seconds of storytelling you're not doing, and you're doing it only to service the one take gimmick.
I think it got a lot of people's like eyeballs into the show that might not have otherwise got into the show. And I think once they got in there, a lot of people were grabbed up enough by the actual storytelling that it kind of worked. But I agree. I don't think it was absolutely necessary for as much of it as was there. It was still impressive technically, but except, like I said, except for the third episode, which for me, the third episode, I thought was the closest in your kind of category of like, not courtroom per se, but two people sparring, mentally in a conversation for essentially 45 minutes or whatever it was, 50 minutes. And that one, I mean, you could have had a still camera for the whole time and it would have been fine, I think. So anyway, you're going to be talking about it. So off to that.
I mean, we
Bruce,
did.
Bruce, I know you got to go, but I have a very quick question before you get out of here. So your review of The Surfer is coming up, and I think my only warning is it's in theaters. Would you warn people they're expecting sort of a Nicolas Cage movie and paying their theatrical money to actually see it in the theaters, or is it one of those things where because it's not such a clear-cut movie as far as the execution, it might be, I hate to say it, it might disappoint a lot of people because I'm thinking of doing a spoiler. You're doing a spoiler. We're talking about the ending. That has value, but what do you think about, what do you think about that?
I agree with you. I think people who loved like Pig and the more esoteric weirdo Cage, I mean, I guess all Cage can be considered weirdo Cage, the more esoteric Cage, because I think a great line for Surfer is, remember, this is the guy who made Vivarium. And I didn't see Nocebo, so I can't say, but if you thought Vivarium was awesome and you kind of vibed with the uncomfortable ongoing weirdness of that movie, I think you'll be okay with Surfer. But even then, both of us, you and I both, had some reservations with the final act. And I think it sets up a scenario where you feel like you're going to get a big kind of meat and potatoes payoff for the final act. And it goes way more esoteric. So I think that people who go in and wanting to kind of just kick butt version of Nick Cage are going to get more of like falling down for the first 2/3 and then absolute mental breakdown for the final third, so you may not be as satisfied for just the average Cage watcher. You want to be a little more art house Cage watcher.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Bruce Purkey, anything you want to say before you get out of here? Eric Holmes, you want to say something?
Actually, one other thing. Bruce, you've been reading a certain book. Project
I'm done with it. I've been done with it for like a couple weeks.
Yeah, sweet. Are we going to get together and talk about that? And also, am I correct? Do people need to read that before any trailers or any sort of spoilers come out?
Yes, because the thing that you're talking about, I understand what that thing is. And I think that...
Oh, that is a cliffhanger. That is a cliff. I think that thing is, oh no, Bruce. The book that Bruce Purkey was mentioning is called Project Hail Mary. And this is a book that really Eric Holmes for the last several years has loved so much. Bruce Purkey's iPhone just a family show just stalled out. So we'll get back to him in a second.
Poop
We'll
the
wait for
bed,
him.
We'll see.
Yeah, you bleep the bed, but don't worry, Bruce Purkey we'll see in a bit. Let me see if I should kick him out of here. Let's see. Should I remove him from the waiting room? What do you think?
No, I like his
Just-
face. I like
You like
looking
his-
at
you-
Bruce.
You like looking at Bruce. Okay,
Yeah.
we'll keep Bruce here.
Makes me want to start giving them people food.
Okay, no worries. Okay, thank you, Bruce.
All right,
Purkey.
no more people food.
Okay. All right. So, Eric Holmes, off the record, your review, your thoughts.
Yeah. So anyway, he basically just jump right into it, aren't we?
Yeah. jump right into it. Why
It's
not?
basically it starts off as like a really nice, meet cute. Hey, I'm a nobody and you're famous and we like each other and the things are going great until Brandon Verge starts showing signs of he's kind of not great. He's kind of a jerk. He's kind of not the sort of boyfriend you want. And then he basically starts giving Aster these things that she wants. She wants to play music, so he allows her to record an album. You got to sign a contract, but he does it in such a way that he's got control over her now. And he's basically just not a great guy. And as the movie goes on,
Maybe he just really
Actually-
cares about her.
no.
I'm just kidding. I'm
no,
kidding.
not even
I'm
close.
kidding. Okay.
I'm trying to. I will say that Brandon Verge's character, I'm dialed into Aster Gray's character. I'm watching her throughout this, and she's making excuses for him and whatnot. I'm just like, no, get away from him. He's a terrible guy. But at the same time, like, he's got control of her music now, so she kind of has to play ball a little bit. And so she, basically she's in love and she falls into this trap pretty much. And I just want her to get out of the trap. And I want Brandon to
Kick rocks.
I want him to get his fingernails pulled up and,
That's a great
salt poured in the wounds.
Oh my goodness.
That doesn't quite happen, but there is a great amount of comeuppance. And there's a really fantastic part towards the end where I'm like, this thing's like a cheeseburger because it's not the best version of this that could ever be made, but it's incredibly satisfying to watch because it's pretty broad. The filmmaking, like, it's not subtle about what it's trying to say, especially when you get towards the second half.
And that's not so bad,
especially-
right? If it's not subtle,
No, it's kind of because, like, now you know what game you're playing, you know what team to root for, that sort of thing.
okay.
But yeah, it started off like, oh, this is going to be a love story. Oh, this is a bad love story. And then we just got to watch her, it's going to be a bummer. And then it turned into this has a message to it. And the message is pretty laid out there. But yeah,
It's a satisfying watch.
I would say if this was just a regular rom-com, this would be pretty sappy, pretty by the numbers. And it's got that kind of filmmaking quality to it. But the way it ends up and how the characters, like, the satisfaction you get watching Rainey Qualley kind of combat Brandon Verge is so good. Even though, like, cinematically it's not the best, but it's a good
story.
It just feels so good when you see it.
And
so-
look, I was throwing shots on this movie. I will say this: the sequence where I saw Rainey Qualley actually perform as a singer-songwriter, I believed her as a musician, singer-songwriter. How was the music in Off the Record? Was it
The
possible for
music's
you?
really good. There's
Okay.
a ton of needle drops, which I guess people find annoying. I didn't care, but whatever. The music, I think, who does some of the singing sounds like Dua Lipa, and I really
Okay.
like that, like Dua Lipa, so I
Okay.
enjoyed the singing. If that was her singing, she's a damn good singer.
I think it's Rainey Qualley. I think Qualley's the one who's singing.
Oh, well, then she's a fantastic singer.
All right. I could be wrong because
Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I think she's actually a musician in real life.
And another thing they do well in this movie is, how, like, when someone's supposed, like, Star is Born does this well. Like Lady Gaga's character is supposed to be this great singer, and they're supposed to be, like, great songwriters and whatnot. And then they do Shallow, and it's like, I can tell you, Shallow's a hit. I cannot go to one karaoke show where Shallow is not, But this has kind of that same thing. Like, Astor Gray's supposed to be this great singer, great songwriter, and then you hear her voice, and her voice sounds amazing, and the songs she's singing are kind of catchy. And yeah, it's good stuff.
Eric Holmes, Rainey Qualley, as a singer-songwriter, musician, she goes by the name Rainsford. I'm looking her up on like Rains, like Rains, Ford, Rainsford. That is her.
I prefer
music
Chevy,
name.
but whatever.
Oh, okay.
Kidding,
So-
I prefer Nissan.
Oh, very, very good. So Spotify, she has 122,000 monthly listeners, and she has a new single out as Rainsford called "See Me Cry." So, per your review, Eric Holmes,
Yeah, that was the See Me Cry. That was the last song they played just before the credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. There you go.
Oh,
So-
yes. Yeah, spoiler alert. The singer in the movie sings songs.
So it's okay. So that's actually added value for you, Eric. Just looking back, that hey, it's actually her doing the stuff. So not bad, huh? Not
Yeah,
bad for off the record.
I mean, you never know. It seemed like she could have been the one singing, but I didn't know for sure. I swear to God, at one point I thought it was Dua Lipa, but yeah, she's.
And I want to apologize to Eric Holmes. I took him to task for actually watching Off the Record instead of Rosario. We're going to get to Rosario in a second. And I apologize, Eric Holmes. Your final thoughts and rating on Off the Record, which seems, by the way, very value added. It's in theaters, digital, and on demand May 2nd.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't give it a star rating, did I?
Yeah, star rating and final
I
comment.
was 6.9 on this one.
6.9 stars because
It's very, so the filmmaking, very basic, but the amount of, and even the storytelling is like, look, it's not reinventing the wheel.
you said cheeseburger. It's a
That-
6.9
that's
star.
definitely a well-made cheeseburger, but it's like a McDonald's cheeseburger. It's like, it's not like a good cheeseburger, but tastes pretty good. And the satisfaction you get in the last or the last third of this movie is so good. I love this movie.
Wow, 6.9
And that
stars.
goes on the record.
That goes on the record. And Eric Holmes, who I'm sure deep down inside, he's such a great guy. He hates when I censor him and say it's actually 5 stars, but it's actually 6.9 stars for Eric Holmes, for Off the Record, Rainy Qualley. Check her out as Rainsford. Check out.
Actually, I probably should have went 3-star banger on this because
No.
I know some people are going to watch this and they're going to roll their eyes at like some of the kind of
We're going to keep you at the high
stuff they
rating.
do.
This is an Eric Holmes top notch.
I was so dialed into this
Oh,
movie,
so good.
and I hated Brandon Verge so much
Yes.
that when they finally got to the comeuppance, I'm like, oh, it feels so good.
It feels.
Get in there, asser. It's family show.
Oh, by the way, yeah, okay. So that is Off the Record. By the way, secret Off the Record. I did watch Off the Record, and I felt that Astor Gray was actually gaslighting Brandon Verge, but we're not gonna. Yeah, I'm also a sociopath. But, so that's moving forward. I'm kidding.
It's funny that a podcaster would say that because that scene is also in the movie.
Oh my goodness. Okay, look, Eric Holmes. My apologies to you again. I'm going to watch Off the Record, and I apologize most importantly to filmmaker Kirsten Foe. I'm gonna come back with a rewind next week on this movie. Now let's get to Rosario. Rosario is a movie that hits theaters nationwide May 2nd. It's going to be in theaters. Horror film, Eric Holmes. I thought this was something that you and Bruce would like because you guys are the horror thriller experts here over in CinemAddicts. Alas, me not being an expert, I got to see this movie. I was the only one to see it, and I'm not apologizing. The good thing is, sacrifices. Eric got to see Off the Record, and it's value added add to the show. Rosario centers on a Wall Street stockbroker named Rosario Fuentes, played by Emerald Tubia. She gets a call, and it's a call that she actually ignored for most of the day. But when her day is over, she gets a call from the apartment landlord or super. The super is played by Paul Ben-Victor. If you don't know the name, you know the face. Great character actor. He calls her and saying, basically, Rosario's grandmother has passed away. And Rosario, who actually has a very beautiful place in Manhattan, I'm assuming Manhattan, and she works in Manhattan. She has to go all the way really far via train to go to her grandmother's ramshackle apartment, in Brooklyn. And what happens is when she goes to her grandmother's apartment in Brooklyn, she has to stay with the grandmother's corpse for most of the narrative. So it's basically Rosario Fuentes with her dead grandmother in the grandmother's Brooklyn apartment, and what happens is Rosario, quote, uncovers a horrifying secret, a hidden chamber filled with occult artifacts tied to dark generational rituals. Rosario.
I'm glad I did not watch this.
Oh, Rosario.
This sounds like a bunch of recurring nightmares I have.
Oh no! Come on, Eric Holmes. You're never scared about this stuff. What?
Well, no. Just like the recurring nightmare I have is like being in a house and then finding a room where my grandma's at and she's dead, and I just got to stay there with her in this house that I don't quite recognize.
Are you joking? Because that's funny. Is that true?
No,
that's true.
That's a recurring nightmare I have. So everything you're describing, I'm like,
oh, no.
I'm not watching this movie.
Oh my gosh. Oh, look, maybe the fate stepped in. Eric Holmes within last week. There might have been a reason why you did not see Rosario rather than the obvious reason. There's some supernatural forces at work. Who knows? Out there. I know you don't believe in ghosts, but maybe there's something supernatural that made you not see Rosario.
I think it's more the setup that you brought up that creeps me out.
Right.
Supernatural.
It is. Yeah. Look, it is a Brooklyn apartment. She finds a chamber. There's occult artifacts, and Rosario goes into it. And as she learns about the artifacts, she realizes how her grandmother was possibly involved with, I don't even know, was it the occult or the supernatural beings? Because actually at the beginning of Rosario, there's a flashback to Brooklyn 1999 where Rosario, I think she has a celebration for her confession, first communion first communion celebration in Brooklyn 1999. And you see her mother and her father, they're celebrating the communion, but Rosario's grandmother, she's off into the side, into another room, and you could see the inklings of the grandmother might be really into stuff that's not really part of the Catholic or Christian religion. There is something weird going on with grandma. And during those years, Rosario, you get to realize, without giving too much away, Rosario and her grandmother were a little bit estranged. The movie Rosario also co-stars David Dastmalchian. We all know David Dastmalchian from, Eric, help me. David Dastmalchian from what movies? What was that?
The Boogeyman, The Dark Knight.
Good. And the talk
Late
show.
Night with the Devil.
Yeah, Late Night with. So he's in this movie.
Anderson hangs out with them.
The
Born Act players, I think.
Okay, so that's very cool that Anderson Cowan.
That was it.
Yeah, Anderson Cowan. Yeah,
he ran into him
a couple times.
I can't remember.
Yeah. No, you're correct, Eric Holmes. So that is.
But he's one of those guys that's like in everything. Like you probably know his name now, but before he was like one of that guys. Like, oh, he's playing that creepy guy in this thing.
Right. Okay. So
Dune. He was in the Dune movies.
Okay, very good, Eric Holmes. So that's Rosario. By the way, David Dastmalchian, he plays the next door neighbor of the grandmother. He has a pretty interesting role in Rosario as well. It's directed by Felipe Vargas. It's his first debut feature as a director. Really enjoying this movie in theaters again, May 2nd. The reason to see Rosario is to actually witness the really solid performance, really interesting performance by Emerald Tobia as Rosario Fuentes. A lot of the movie is basically her in that room, in that apartment with the grandmother's corpse, and you see a lot of the special effects unfurl a lot. And what's cool is I'm not really an expert on CGI and physical. What is it? What is it? The special effects that's not CGI. It's just very natural effects. I guess Eric Holmes. Yeah, physical effects. Practical. Thank you, Eric Holmes. Practical effects. I'm assuming there's a lot of practical effects in Rosario. The creature feature stuff in this movie is really well done. Also, I will say this. Did not see this movie in theaters. This Rosario might be worth watching in theaters because along with the creature feature element, the practical effects like Eric Holmes mentioned, there is the actual apartment itself the lighting is via candlelight. And I don't know how Felipe Vargas and his DP, how they actually were able to make a really dark movie, but you can see everything pretty well. Really well done for Rosario. Really liked all those elements. Solid drama, great performance from Emerald Tobia as Rosario Fuentes. And I really like the theme of just the importance of keeping your heritage, especially in this family, this generational trauma, as well as the cultural heritage involved in Rosario. Really well done film. I'm giving Rosario 4 stars, again, in theaters nationwide, May 2nd. And Eric Holmes will probably never watch it because he has recurring nightmares, again, regarding his grandmother. Wow.
I'll watch it.
Oh, wow.
It's a family show.
It's a family show. All right.
I'm not a set of testicles.
Oh, you are. Okay. Well, I'm so glad, by the way, you did off the record. We're going to finally close the show because Eric Holmes has to leave within moments to get to his actual job that pays him money. By the way, Eric Holmes, I'll make sure we will be making our millions over at CinemAddicts. If we do make our millions, again, we're going to keep all that money. We're not going to tell Bruce Purkey or Anderson Cowan that you and I are
I mean,
rich.
they're probably already listening.
Oh, but before we get out of here, Eric Holmes, you have a review of Bonjour Tristesse. When you do this review, just know that I'm going to make your review a lot easier because Bruce Purkey on the back end, he has a review of Bonjour Tristesse as well. So what is this movie about? Is it worth it? Am I missing out again? Is it like another off the record call that I should have actually watched this movie as well this week?
Bonjour Tristesse, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I believe it means goodbye sadness.
Good.
It's probably Spanish or German or something. Who knows? Nobody knows. Languages don't exist, and we don't know what things are. But it's based on a book by Francois Sagan.
Okay.
I believe I'm saying that correct.
Okay.
And they have since made, this would be the fourth adaptation of it. Fourth or fifth, I believe Otto Preminger did this.
Most popular one, right? Yeah.
And then they're like in the 40s or 50s, and then there was another one shortly after, and then there was a TV movie. And I think this one, there might have been other ones, but this is a pretty popular story that, people like to make. And I can kind of see why. It's basically you got a girl, her dad, and her dad's girlfriend, and they're just hanging out. And, things are going good until Chloe Sevigny shows up. And so the dad, his wife and the girl, her mom, has passed away. So he's with his girlfriend now. I thought that they were married, but it soon shows that that's not the case.
Okay. And the father is played by Claes Bang. The girlfriend is Elsa, played by Nailaya Harzone, and the main character, which is Cecile, 18-year-old Cecile, is played by Lily McKierney. Sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
But yeah, so the mom's out of the picture. She's dead. But Chloe Sevigny, and she was the mom's friend. And she shows up, and things get kind of weird. Like, because she's like, oh, family friend, oh, we've known you forever. This is fine. But as her stay lengthens, it starts, like with the Elsa, things start getting weird. And she kind of starts, like, even in the movie, like her character just kind of starts getting more and more into the background. And Cecile, she's finding a boyfriend and all that. And, she finds a boy that she likes, and they start hanging out. But then as eventually the dad and Chloe Sevigny, they decide that they're going to get together. Not only are they going to get together, they're going to get married. And now Elsa's out of the picture, just like, within like hours. And so now this is like, wait, how the hell is this work? And just watching like kind of the characters dealing with that and how matter of fact they are about it. Like Elsa, she, the Cecile, she's talking to her and she's like, oh yeah, he loves her. It's fine. These things happen. I'm like, you're taking this extremely well. And just kind of watching the back and forth. So anyway, I'll kind of leave it at this.
I am so weirded out that you actually watched this movie. I was thinking this is not your movie, and I'm wrong.
Cecile has a plan to get rid of Anne and bring Elsa back.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that because the plan's kind of bonkers, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, it started off as like kind of indie porn kind of stuff. But like Bruce mentioned earlier, and maybe I'll mention in his review after us, it's pretty to look at. But what I responded to was, first of all, it was just kind of vibing with the movie because it was real pretty. It was a slow burn, but it was like one of those like, all right, I'm just hanging out with the family. I can do this. And then once the plot kicked in, I've already spent so much time hanging with the family and just vibing with it. When the plot kicks in proper, I'm like, oh, now what's going on? And then when Cecile and Elsa kind of conspire, I'm like, oh, really? That's what we're doing now. Okay, I see what's going on.
That is so weird. Okay, so Bonjour Tristesse, it's directed and co-written by Durga Chubos or Bosi. I'm mispronouncing the
I'll
name.
take your word for it.
Well, I don't know. I'm just gonna try to pronounce. I just tried to pronounce it. It's 63% currently on Rotten Tomatoes, Eric Holmes. What
Should
is your
be
final?
six higher.
Oh, okay, should be a little bit higher. A final thought and rating on Bonjour Tristesse.
I'll go 4 stars on this. I
Mm,
don't know why I'm going higher.
okay.
I really don't, but I enjoyed this quite a bit.
Were you surprised that you enjoyed it? Did you go in thinking, okay, this is going to be like this indie movie that's too pretentious that I'm not gonna like? Were you surprised at how much you enjoyed
Well,
it?
let's see. You read the thing, right? The height of summer, 18-year-olds, the seals languishing by the French seaside with their handsome fun. Yeah, it's got a plot. It's got characters. It moves. Like it moves slowly, but it moves. Like where I get hung up is it's an introspective look at the heart of humankind and blah blah blah. It's like that's not a plot. That's not a story. We're in for just watching characters watch paint dry. I'm not in for this. Bonjour Tristesse had kind of an actual plot. It was going somewhere, and I was following the characters. And see, when movies like this, and I get why you think that I wouldn't like movies like this,
Yes.
because these kind of movies tend to go nowhere. They're just like, oh, Craig, would you look at the grass? It's growing. So
Right.
anyhow, you see how boring that was? That's most of these movies. But Bonjour Tristesse is one of those, like, it has characters and then they actually do things and the story moves. And now I'm interested. If you're just sitting there languishing in your cinematography, I'm going to get bored of it eventually.
Things I learned this episode of Cinematics before we close. I'm going to do a quick mini review because I know Eric has to go pretty soon. I thought Off the Record and Bonjour Tristesse would be the movies that Eric Holmes should not see this weekend. And he does, and he likes both of them. 4 stars from Eric Holmes, Bonjour Tristesse in select theaters May 2nd. Well done, Eric Holmes. Going against the grain. Nope, I'm not going to see a Nick Cage movie. Nope, no horror movie with Rosario. Nope, this really cool boxing film, Salvable. Not going to see it. But because look, you didn't willingly not see these because look, off the record, I mean, not off the record, but just basically on the record, sometimes links get lost in our emails and just schedule happens. And the last 2 movies I wanted Eric Holmes to see ended up being very value added stuff. Any final comments before we get to our last mini review, Eric Holmes?
Not just yet. I do want to mention Trumbo after you're done, though.
Oh, really? You're going to be out in 10 minutes? You're going to be okay?
I will be late for work to talk about Trumbo.
Oh, no.
It was a Patreon thing. I wanted to do it last week.
Okay.
And time ran short, but I do want to get Trumbo out.
Give me 3 minutes to the floor because I'm going to mention something very quickly, and then we're going to get
if you want.
Okay, 3. How about this? 4 minutes and 10 seconds. Okay, so next up, very quickly before we end our section of cinematics, because cinematic is with Bruce Purkey is coming up in a few moments, I will recommend a movie this week. Not a movie, a mini series this week called The 4 Seasons. It's on Netflix, and it centers on 3 suburban couples. They vacation together each season, but tensions arise when one couple splits up and the husband brings a much younger woman on subsequent trips. It's 8 episodes for this series, for the 4 seasons. The couples include, there are 3 couples. First couple is Tina Fey and Will Forte. The second couple is Steve Carell and Carrie Kinney. And the third couple is Coleman Domingo and Marco Calvani. That is the 3 couples that are part of the 4 seasons. We also have to mention Erica
Did you say
Hennig.
Carrie Kinney?
Yes, Eric
I'm
Holmes. Yes.
sold.
You're sold. All right.
Just stop there. Carrie Kinney's in it. I'm watching it.
Oh, very good, Eric Holmes. Carrie Kinney is in it, and I can't wait, Eric, when you give your thoughts on the 4 seasons over on Netflix, currently streaming on Netflix. By the time we've actually released this episode, but by the way, we also have to mention Erica Henningsen. She is the actress who plays the much younger woman who joins them on these subsequent trips for the 4 seasons. The actual mini series or the series is directly inspired by the movie The 4 Seasons that was directed by Alan Alda, and it starred Alan Alda as well. I do have the DVD. I ordered the DVD for the Alan Alda film The 4 Seasons over the weekend at Amazon, and I haven't checked it out yet, but it's so cool. You look at Amazon, Eric, and you see all the orders for the 4 Seasons DVD, over 200 orders, because a lot of people were thinking what I'm thinking. They probably wanted to see the DVD of the Alan Alda film, The Four Seasons, before watching this version of The Four Seasons. What Eric Holmes, 3 couples who go on trips over the span of a year, and maybe each episode will focus on their trips. Does that sound whatever to you, or interesting? You said you're going to see it because of Kerry Kinney, but what about the baseline plot? What do you think?
Baseline plot sounds lame.
Lame. Thank you.
Kenny sounds like I'm going to watch this.
Anyway, even if it
As
sounds
does Tina Fey, Will Forte, Steve Carell, all that. But Carrie Kinney was the one, like, yeah.
Right.
She's great.
Right.
Her.
Okay. So, but you're saying it sounds kind of lame, right? Yeah. You're thinking you're saying it
sounds
might
extremely lame.
It sounds fluffy, like a fluffy plot, right? And that's what I was thinking. Look, if it's just a hang with all of these Coleman Domingo, right? If it's a hang with all of these talented actors, I'm down for it. And that's what I went into with The Four Seasons. Here's the thing. With Tina Fey as one of the people who are the creators, and she's also one of the writers. She wrote and co-wrote it with Tracy Wigfield. Who else are the creators for The Four Seasons? I'll look it up right now. My bad on this. So it's Tracy Wigfield, Lang Fisher, and Tina Fey. What you're going to get in The Four Seasons is the plot might seem very fluffy to you, but The Four Seasons is a great series because of the writing and the acting by all of those aforementioned actors involved. And again, just each of these characters, these couples, including the young woman, each of them get their time to shine within the Four Seasons. It's funny. It's not hilarious, but it's really funny and witty. And if you are a fan of,
you said series,
it's a limited series. Well, it's 8 episodes. Oh, Eric Holmes, very good. I'm glad you and I are going back and forth on this. It's a series. Here's the thing: each one of these 8 episodes, it's about 25.
Is a wonder, so it's really good.
No,
right?
Not a wonder like Adolescence, but it's 25 to 30 minutes in length. Eric Holmes, it's very short. So, all right, 25, 30 minutes. Can you do that? Maybe one episode.
I do like
22
Carrie
minutes.
Kenny, but I want to be in the movie.
Will
please.
Forte, man.
Will Forte can also be in the movie.
Tina Fey and Coleman.
You know what? I will still watch an episode or two.
Okay. You promise? You give it. Okay. All right. So we can't mention any spoilers.
We don't got time for. We don't got time for.
I know we don't have time, but I did have time to see The Four Seasons. I really love the writing. Eric was saying about characters doing things. There's a lot of things that are done in The Four Seasons. The conversation's excellent. The characters are well etched. What more can I say? It's just a brilliantly done series. I'm giving The Four Seasons, running 8 episodes on Netflix, 4.5 stars. I really loved the performances, especially the writing is the king and queen of this series. I hope it's not just a limited series. I hope it's just not a one-off. There are a couple of surprises in The Four Seasons that I believe the powers that be at Netflix say that I should not mention, and I'm not going to mention it. I will say this, though. After watching the 8 episodes of The Four Seasons, I don't know if it'll happen. I hope there is possibly another installment of The Four Seasons. I don't know if it's in the offing, but I would love to see more of these couples go at it, and they feel like real friends. And Carrie Kinney, to Eric's point, she's fantastic in The Four Seasons. So to whet Eric's appetite, if you ever enjoyed Carrie Kinney's work, I think you're going to really appreciate what she does in The Four Seasons. But again, there are no weak elements in this series. 4.5 stars for me for Netflix. Eric Holmes is off to work, possibly to do stuff, but he actually said he's going to be late for work to do this movie, which Bruce Purkey already reviewed last week for our Patreon. We're assigned Patreon, but you're very dedicated. The movie is Trumbo. Eric Holmes, what do you have to say? Give yourself some time.
Well, did you see Trumbo at all?
I did a press conference years ago. I have the Blu-ray actually over in the bedroom, right down the hall. I have not rewatched it, Eric Holmes. I have not rewatched Trumbo, but I remember really loving it back in the day.
So I've seen pieces of it, and then I was like, did I see the whole thing? I watched it again. I'm like, no, I didn't see the whole thing. I would definitely remember seeing the whole thing. This movie's awesome. I love this movie. Everything about it. The whole way because it has that courtroom drama aspect to it, since immediately have the communists versus the patriots, if you want to call them that. Just that whole back and forth. Trumbo basically saying, "Are you a communist?" And like his brain is like, "I'm not going to say yes because this is a gotcha. But what's important is I'm allowed to be. That, you know, this was a dark time, probably not as dark as actually. Yeah, you got the blacklist, you got slavery, you got murdering Native Americans. America's got a bunch of dark.
Whole litany of stuff. In this movie, Trumbo
It says Salem witch trials. Like Trump is president. We got so many dark times.
Bryan Cranston plays Dalton Trumbo, screenwriter Dalton Trumbo.
So basically what I wanted to really talk about was the bit with him and who plays
Helen Mirren, Diane Lane.
Oh God, my brain went.
Edward G. Robinson,
partner.
Oh, Michael Stuhlbarg is Edward G. Robinson, the actor. He was good in that. I like Michael Stuhlbarg. Louis C.K. I'm going through a bunch of actors.
Louis C.K. was great. The John Wayne, Jesus.
John Wayne, David James Elliott from Jag. How dare you forget the name, David James Elliott from Jag? Yeah.
No, I forgot the name John Wayne.
Oh, you forgot the name John Wayne. Okay, you remember Jag. You remember
John Wayne's a piece of crap.
Oh, in the movie, right? Yeah. So.
Definitely in the movie. If he actually did the things that he did, like I was a fan of John Wayne. You know, I like McClintock. You know, I like True Grit. You know that I like Grit, the John Wayne.
The Searchers.
Movies.
Yeah.
And actually, I can kind of buy it. Like his character in Trumbo, he's a piece of crap. Screw that guy.
It's an all-star cast. Bryan Cranston, Diane Lane, Helen Mirren, Louis C.K., Michael Stuhlbarg, again, the aforementioned David James Elliott. Eric Holmes, when people say, I don't know if I want to see Trumbo because it seems like a teaching lesson about Hollywood back in the day and the blacklist, what would you say to that person? Of course, Bryan Cranston, again, plays Dalton Trumbo. What would you say to people who don't want a history lesson when watching Trumbo? Is it more than just a history lesson, Eric Holmes?
Well, take the history lesson because we'll keep repeating it. Take every history lesson you can. Okay. So we had blacklist of blah 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 blah, and we're gonna blacklist you. Like, I mean, we still have stuff like that. And watching this watching Dalton Trumbo write, because I've been kind of on a writing slump lately, and this kind of got my juices going again. Just watching him in the bathtub, just like doing the Harlan Ellison machine, where he's just like it's not a talent, it's a skill.
Yeah.
And then that was kind of inspiring. And then watching all the political stuff kind of got my juices going. This is just a really damn good movie. And then you got Louis C.K. in it. His character is great in this, but I know some people have issues with him. And
fair enough.
But
entertaining movie, Trumbo. You were surprised how entertaining this movie was for you.
John Goodman. I'm a garbage.
We have to thank
John Goodman's character in this might be up there with John Goodman's character in Flight. Like those two characters are like
very good.
And actually, even put Walter from Big Lebowski up there.
Oh wow.
Dude, John Goodman's so good. That's why he's called Goodman.
And,
if he wasn't, he'd be called John Badman, but he wasn't. He was John Goodman.
We also have to mention Elle Fanning as the daughter of Trumbo. Yes, Eric Holmes.
I'm sure she was in it. But John Goodman is John Goodman's treasure. Please don't turn out to be a big piece of crap. And then
like John Wayne.
My word.
Okay, so Trumbo, it's currently streaming on Tubi and Peacock. I have a Blu-ray, so it's available on physical media as well. Eric Holmes, final thoughts and rating on Trumbo, and you have to get to work. My goodness, thanks for staying.
They'll be fine. Be like, Eric, why are we late? I'm like, I had to talk about Trumbo, and they're like, oh, cool. Yeah, no, you do that.
All right, Eric Holmes, final thoughts and rating on Trumbo.
And hey, what's the worst case? They're gonna fire me? I don't care.
Oh no, don't say that. Don't say that. That's off the record. Not on the record. Okay, Trumbo, final thoughts and rating.
Trumbo. 6.9 stars. Love this movie. I wish I would have watched it more.
Oh my goodness. All right. So that is it, Eric Holmes. You want to say anything else before we get out of here? Well done, sir.
Yes. Oh, well, I was going to talk about Adolescence, but we kind of
did it with Bruce
on that.
Yeah.
I'll go 3.5 on that.
Okay.
I think the story's good. I just think it's too much of a gimmick. They should have They should have jettisoned the gimmick and focused on the story. But it does work as a good prequel to Eric LaRue, which I know Bruce had issues with Eric LaRue and he liked Adolescence better. I'm on the other side of that. I think Eric LaRue is a better told story than Adolescence.
Adolescence, a little bit overpraised.
They both work. they both work in a pair, I think, pretty well.
Okay. So you liked Adolescent, but was it overhyped, overpraised? Because everyone's saying it's the best thing since
It was praised because of the wonders each episode. I think the wonders hurt it as a whole. They're impressive to look at, but they're not. The Anthony Bourdain was talking about hamburgers. It's like, well, we could add avocado, we could add mushrooms, we could add this, we could add that. You have to ask yourself, does it make it better? And if the answer is no, don't add it. Does the wonders make adolescence better? The answer is no.
Okay.
They're gimmicks. Right? They're nice looking gimmicks, but adolescence, I think, would have been better off had it been like, a couple wonders here and there, and a couple of spots are pretty effective. Didn't make it better. Just kind of, in fact, sometimes, especially in the last episode, could have been just a knockout punch. And it was held way back because they had to stick with the wonder. It hurt it as a whole, but it helped it because people were talking about the wonder, so it got people watching it. So in that case, it's good. But as a whole, it would have been better off had they went more traditional with it.
Okay, so that is Adolescence, 3.5 stars from Eric Holmes. Now we're getting to adulthood. Eric Holmes, are you fired from your job yet? You're an adult. Are you
So let's go ahead and talk about Gremlins: The Wild Batch, which is now on HBO, which is on that. Oh yeah, they got a new Gremlins commercial or a Gremlins cartoon on there.
You're excited about that? Okay, final thought, Eric, before we go over to Bruce Purkey over at the Cinematic.
I will talk about Gremlins later.
Okay.
we don't see time today, but we will talk about that later for sure.
Eric Holmes has some money to make. He has a job to get to, and he's actually a little bit late because he's very devoted to cinema. And with that being said, here is Bruce Purkey over at the Cinematic.
Welcome back to the Cinematic, the attic of cinema. I have opened a hatch, climbed down from my attic dwelling, where I am fed through a little slot various food morsels from Eric's leftover steak nights and his pickling projects and hot sauce making projects. So a lot of the stuff I get's kind of spicy. It's good, but it's kind of leftover spices and sauces on, bits of meat that's more gristly than I would really like. But yes, I'll still eat it because I'm hungry. Hangry? Am I hangry? Eric, am I hangry? I guess we'll find out about how I react to these movies today. So this week, we have a couple of interesting movies. I myself did a little movie called The Surfer, starring a person known as Nicolas Cage. And I also have a movie called, well, this sounds very hoity-toity, Bonjour Tristesse. Yes, it's a remake of a movie from the 50s, 60s? I can't remember. I think it might be the 60s. I don't know. I didn't ever see the original, but apparently it exists. I didn't know until I watched this movie, then looked it up that it was a remake. It's also based on a very well-known book, apparently. Those are the two movies. And then, and I also have a recommendation of a movie that is now available on Hulu that I know that Greg saw. I don't know if Eric did. I know Greg quite liked it, and it's called The Order from last year. Kind of talk about that for a little bit. All right, let's get into it. All right, we are going to first talk about The Surfer, directed by Lorcan Finnegan. Lorcan Finnegan might sound kind of interesting to you because you're like, well, it's a surfer. Where is this taking place? California? Nope, it's taking place in Australia with Nicolas Cage as the star. Okay, hang in with me. Directed by Lorcan Finnegan, an Irish gentleman. So it is an Irish-Australian co-production. Lorcan, I know best from a few movies. I know he made Nocebo, but I don't think I ever saw Nocebo, or maybe, I know Greg did. But I did see a Vivarium, and I also saw a short he did called Foxes. I saw another movie he made too, but Vivarium was kind of a very polarizing movie because it was very stylized, almost a Twilight Zone-esque sort of a setup, but also a lot of people found it to just go too far off the deep end to really keep them all the way along. I think it's a little bit underrated. I think Vivarium's kind of a cool and very odd movie, and I appreciated it. Anyway, that's Lorcan. So what is this movie? What is The Surfer? Once again, very highly stylized. This is very sun-baked, desaturated, blues, and I mean it's saturated in its own way. It's just like it's filtered really strangely. So everything seems to be very, instead of a mid blue sky, it's a very bright blue sky and very, very tanned in this movie. I don't know what he does exactly, but there's definitely some interesting filtering going on or color correction after the fact for this movie. So what you got is you got the surfer, literally called the surfer, played by Nick Cage. You've also got a bunch of other major characters, but I would say the other main character I wrote down was Scally. I don't know if that's short for Scallywag. Maybe. No, actually, I think it's say what his name is. It's something that is longer version of Scal. He's played by Julian McMahon. There's a bunch of other characters, like I said. Basically, you start out this movie, and Nick is kind of a harried businessman. He's splitting from his wife. He's got a pretty grown-up kid. His kid looks like he's maybe late teens, early 20s. And they're driving down the coast because he wants to show him this childhood cliffside home in Australia that, businessman Cage is going to buy back. He's going to buy it back and kind of regain his childhood of just free and easy surfing where he lived with his dad there on the shore. So Cage's plan is he's on the phone all the time and he's making deals. And his plan is to go out there with his kid, surf on the beach. And when they're out there surfing, he's going to look back over at the house and he's going to tell his kid, I just bought that house. And that's going to be his perfect picture postcard family father-son moment. That's the setup for him getting there. They pull into the little parking lot, like you go to any kind of like a beach or a park. They have a little parking lot and then you walk off the parking lot into like a little trail that leads down to the beach. And he's doing that. He gets down towards the beach and he's stopped immediately. It's like a bunch of surfer type of dudes are down there roughhousing. And what does the guy say? I wrote it down. You don't live here, you don't surf here. That's what they meet him with, like bullies, like schoolyard bullies, like a bully from, A Christmas Story or something. Very cartoonish, but they're there and they're stopping him on the beach and there's just no turning around. And Scally comes over and he's kind of like the older surfer dude that seems to be sort of their mentor, their leader of all these like younger, late teen, early 20s age kids that are all roughhousing on the beach, like they own the beach. They're a beach gang, basically. I think they even call them Bay Boys. They call them Bay Boys, And they tell them a couple times, and then, Scally comes over and says, hey, man, we don't want to have trouble here. This is not your place. This is not for you. Turn around and head on back. And, maybe one time it was yours, but it's not yours anymore. And that's the basic, conflict, right? So he heads back up the beach. And in the middle of this, like I said, stylistically, the way it looks is very unique, but also it uses kind of these very 70s-ish, whip pans and whip zooms and stuff. Things that just kind of make you feel like you're in a heightened, like non-reality. Like, first of all, are there these roving surfer gangs in the, present day? I kind of don't think so, but that's fine. You have to kind of take the heightened unreality of the situation. It's very set up to make you kind of go like, okay, we're not in the actual real world. This is like the internal hyper world of Mr. Cage. Anyway, you're back at that parking lot, and so begins an unraveling epic for the surfer, because he kind of ends up being in kind of a purgatory. This parking lot ends up being like a purgatory for him. For some reason, he doesn't leave it. His kid does. And it's weird. Like him, I've kind of got lost in this dream. I was watching the movie and I can't remember how his kid left, but he did, but very quickly, Cage is meeting all the various types of people that are coming and going from this parking lot. Not a huge parking lot. It probably only fits like, I don't know, 40 cars, 30 cars at the most. In the one corner, there's an old beaten down car that seems to have been parked there forever with a sort of a homeless dude that kind of lives there, and he comes up and talks to people. They have a little, pop-up kind of a food drink stand in the corner. Various people come and go. Families come and go. Weirdly, like Cage is kind of stuck there. And you're like, why is Cage stuck here? And he's trying to make the deal and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And I was really thinking this is going to be maybe one of my favorite movies of the year for the first, I don't know, half, because it's just one thing after another thing going wrong for him. And you see him just being dismantled emotionally and physically by all these different mishaps and terrible decisions on his part. And I almost thought of like Falling Down. You know, with Falling Down, it's a journey, right? He's trying to get someplace. And as he goes there, he keeps encountering these cartoonish kind of types, not tropes, but kind of stereotypes of people. And each of those keeps tearing him down. But what you're really learning is how messed up and, you know, he is not a great person and all these different things about society. This one's kind of a version of that, but in this parking lot where he's getting, like I said, slowly pulled apart emotionally and physically. Another thing is there's kind of this little overlook next to the parking lot where you can look down at the beach. And he keeps going up there and looking down at the marauding Bay Boys and their behavior is almost, which is humorous, but also just, you know, once again, heightened. And to me, at some points, it almost felt like, because I talked about it being like Falling Down, it also felt a little bit like The Road Warrior. And if you remember in The Road Warrior, there's these scenes in there where he's up on the hilltop and he's looking down at the marauding gangs, you know, from his height. And he's watching them. And before he engages with them, he's kind of watching what they do. And you get a little of that in this movie too. Now, all that being said, I said, well, this is going to be like one of my favorite movies of the year. You know, you got Cage unraveling and getting more and more cagey. And you've got this kind of weird, crazy situation. And it's just a very isolated, focused, you know, comedy, drama, thriller, psychological thriller. It's not really action. Psychological thriller, I guess. But to some degree, it kind of falls off a cliff in the last third. Either you love it even more in the final third or it loses you in the final third. And I think it was one of those movies that kept hanging on by his fingernails at the last third for me. And I don't think it fell off the cliff enough for me to not recommend it. I think overall, the highs on this movie are enough that it buoys me along and still gives me a pretty strong recommendation for me. But it just should have been a great movie. It should have been an easy, you know, 5-star banger for me. And it definitely did not get there because that last third, I probably have to get into some spoilers to really say why. But I'm not going to do that till after the end of my little segment here. So when I get to the end, I'll throw on some spoilers and Greg may, you know, 2 years from now, let you hear it. He's been doing that lately. He's been resurrecting all of his spoilers that we've done for various shows and movies from years ago for people to read and listen to and all that stuff. Anyway, what's my final come down on this? I would say, well, I can give you a non-spoiler version of what I don't like about the ending. Sometimes in these kind of movies, you get in this quandary of, it's one of those, did it happen or is it all in their head kind of a thing? And I think there's a couple different readings of this movie which might make you think it's the latter of that, which I can enjoy, but also it can really be a writer cop-out. Like when a writer puts themselves in a situation where they've written themselves in a corner and they can't figure out how to get out of it, they either do it's all a dream or, oh, it was all in his head, or it's, you know, it's an eternal, you know, fantasy or something like that. So that kind of outcome, especially for a movie like this, I think is less fun than letting it just be a crazy reality that, you know, a person just is found themselves in and you have to like follow them as a genuine event in their lives in this world. I tend to like that earlier version, that version to be more interesting to me. How do I rate this thing? 'Cause I love the first, you know, 2/3 of it and I didn't like the last third of it very much. Although I could be turned on that maybe with a second viewing. I think I'll go, if the last third is 3 stars and the first 2/3 is 5 stars, I'll probably go 4 stars on this. And I think some people are going to really be turned off by this. So you have to be in for a cage. You have to be into weirdness. You have to be into this really unreal universe. I think the people who like that could really go with this and enjoy it quite a bit. So I'm going to go 4 stars on this movie. Next, Bonjour Tristesse. Bonjour Tristesse, directed by Durga Bose. I do believe I said that name. It doesn't sound like a fake name. It doesn't sound like a real name, but it is apparently, and I'm probably saying it incorrectly. We've got a few different characters here. We've got Cecile, kind of your main character, Cecile. She's a teenage girl, played by Lily McInerney. You've got Elsa, played by Nalia Harzoun. You've got Raymond, who's the father in the situation, played by Claes Bang. And you've got Anne, played by Chloe Sevigny. Now, Elsa and Raymond are a couple. He's a widower, and she is his longtime girlfriend. You know, you feel like they've been together long enough that they might be on the verge of being engaged, but they don't seem like they are. And they're on a vacation with Cecile, and Cecile is his actual daughter. So it almost feels like a stepmother, father, daughter situation, even though they're not married, the older two. And they're all beautiful, and they're all in this sun-soaked, like Mediterranean resort. I think it might be in the Riviera, wherever it is. It's the kind of place that would probably cost you thousands of dollars a night to stay at. You have to be highly privileged to be in a place like this. And they, I think, are there for the whole summer. I don't know if they're supposed to be owning it or if they're just renting it. Either way, they must have a ton of money. And you know, I think Elsa's supposed to be a model. I mean, but she's older, you know, she's like 30s, early 40s, you know, as opposed to Cecile, who's like, seems like she's like, I don't know, 16, 17. And Cecile is off, you know, during the daytimes, you know, laying around on the beach with a boy she met nearby, which is like a friend. And, you know, they're having kind of a summer romance. And the first third of this movie is just a lot of laying about in the sun and talking about the past and drinking drinks and eating food. And that, you can get the picture. A lot of that kind of stuff. And I don't know, maybe a half hour into this movie, 20 minutes into the movie, Anne, like I said, played by Chloe Sevigny, re-enters the father's life. She is a longtime friend, and she was basically friends of he and his dead wife. So she has known him and been really close to him forever. So when she comes back in, it's almost like having an aunt come back in. But, you know, she's more involved in she knew about his romance. She knew about his wife and all that kind of stuff. So she feels a little bit like an invader when she shows up to the summer retreat. And the minute she gets there, she is definitely a different vibe. You know, Elsa is very like permissive and just doesn't seem to care what Cecile is doing. Cecile is just having a teenage summer. But when Anne, Chloe Sevigny, gets there, immediately she's talking to Cecile about things like, well, did you pass your classes? Do you have to take tests when you get back? Are you studying during the summer to get back to school? She's acting much more like a mom, much more of a organizing influence and a stern influence. And then she also seems to have a similar kind of approach to Cecile's father, Raymond. You know, she's very much like, she seems to have a judging eye of his relationship with Elsa and seems to look at it like it's frivolous. And you just get a feeling she has a stake in it all the way along. Like she doesn't seem very approving of it. And you can tell that she's a fashion designer, by the way. And I think his ex or his, dead wife, I forget what, she was either another model or she was also in the fashion industry. It's all very upper crust French, French type stuff. So what is the point of this movie? Let's get to that. Or where is this movie going? Was there drama? I guess the drama is that Anne is kind of I don't want to say this because I want to make it nice, and she's the fly in the ointment. She is the interloper. She is the thing that's messing up this idyllic, lazy, hazy, sun-bleached summer. She's coming in and just giving us kind of this dose of reality. But the weird thing about it is, you might say that, but what she ends up doing to the relationships here is very unrealistic and very unplanned out and very unreasonable. So I don't want to say what that is because I think it's a bit of a reveal. So it's kind of a dichotomy as far as how her character works. Like I said, you think she's kind of this voice of reason and reality kind of bursting in on their summer. But then the thing that she ends up causing to happen seems like a pretty unreal, unreasonable thing for a person to do. I know I'm being vague, but for people who want to discover it, that's there to discover. Now, I'm making it sound like there's a lot of interesting drama and characters here. which absolutely there is not. To me, this is very, I mean, you talk about just like floating in a pool or on the edge of the shore. I mean, if that's your vibe and you can vibe with that, and you want to vibe with that with some extremely, extremely privileged people, then knock yourself out. You're going to love this movie. But if that sounds very annoying, then you're going to probably start getting annoyed pretty quickly. I was pretty annoyed. Now, what makes it even more annoying is the writing. See, I think this looks beautiful. Just say the first things. So this director is definitely, and their DP is bringing a beautiful looking movie. You know, it's impeccably compositioned, you know, a shot. You can just tell they planned everything. Everything in the scene is placed where it needs to be placed. The camera's placed where it needs to be placed. The cinematography is beautiful. So it just looks, it's not quite as staged as, say, a Wes Anderson. You know, that's highly, you know, dollhousey. But still, it's very impeccably placed. So you can tell nothing's haphazard. This is not someone who's just shooting by the, you know, shooting as they go and just kind of figuring it out and just letting it be. This is a person that's very much getting everything where they want it to be and placing the actors and blocking everything perfectly. So as far as all that goes, it's great. You know, the actors are all beautiful. Everyone's impossibly beautiful. Great. If you love, and it's a beautiful setting. So if all of that is working for you, great. But what about the story? First of all, the characters are all insufferable. They all kind of deserve their uninteresting lives and their uninteresting fates. And I don't have much care about their dramas because their dramas are, once again, kind of insufferable. But it's the way they talk in this movie. It's very overwritten. And I know it's based on I think it's a beloved book, or maybe it's a novel, or what do they call it? Novella. I think it might be a novella. So maybe a lot of the lines and the dialogue in here are based on that, where that can kind of work in a book where it's either internal dialogue or the heightened language is kind of poetic, but it's really hard to pull off in something you're supposed to be, you know, presenting to us as realistic. Like, I think I wrote something down. I think at one point Anne and Raymond are talking together, and Anne says to him, she's not going to stay close just because you give her so much room. It's like, whoa. And then he's like, be wrong sometimes. It's less lonely, you know? And it's like, what? People don't talk like that. And also it's dialogue that seems to be in love with itself. It's like, boy, did you hear what I just said? You want to stop for a second? Let's pay attention to that. You want to write that down? Here, I'll say it. You want to say, I'll say it again. They don't do that, but it's always like, I'll say it again so you can get that down on paper. Because this is like going to be some pretty awesome wisdom you're getting. Those kind of groaners, as far as I'm concerned, those kind of like just people talking like they're philosophizing the world every time they speak is just, it's crazy. And Cecile does it a bunch, and she's like a 17-year-old kid. And I don't think it's very believable for anybody to do that unless they're really like, I don't know, a professor or something. But for her to do it is really unrealistic. And I think the original story, once again, I didn't read it, so I could be just talking out of my butt here. I think the original story might have had a lot of internal dialogue, and maybe this is a way of them trying to kind of make that happen. Whatever the case is, it's a lot to get through this movie for me. I think this movie it's an hour and 45 minutes. It should be an hour at the most. It felt like 3 hours. It's just insufferable. I know someone else is going to say, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. And I just floated with it. But for me, I was sinking really quickly. I was going to give it 1 star. I think I'll give it 2 stars, only because everyone did a good job at what they were supposed to do. It looked great. You know, no one did a bad job acting. It was well produced. And for what it's trying to do, it's probably a good version of that. I just wasn't down for what it was trying to do. Okay, that's my 2 screeners for the week. Bonjour Tristesse and The Surfer. The Surfer for me is, of course, definitely the recommendation. Now, I do have 1 streaming recommendation I watched this week, although I watched a bunch of stuff. I'm only going to talk about 1, and that's The Order, which I know that Greg, I believe, reviewed back in the fall. I want to say November, maybe December. This is a movie that when he described it, I really wanted to see it, but I think he was only able to get a screener for it, or he might have, I don't think he went and saw it in the theater. I know there's something about it where we couldn't get the screener or it was too late or something like that. It's directed by Justin Kurzel or Kurzel. I forget how to say the name. Same director that made Nitram and the Snowtown Murders. And also he did what's the name of it? There's an outlaw in Australia. He did a biopic on that too. He seems to have a real knack of making these kind of gritty, super grounded, true life crime pics that are kind of not even biopics exactly, but they're kind of retelling real events, real crime events. And they have a real grittiness that is kind of similar to the kind of stuff like Hell or High Water or No Country for Old Men. They always have this kind of slightly vintage, but like I said, super gritty and grounded quality. And they're just very, for me, they're super engaging. These are also solid dad movies. If you know, like elevated dad movies. So you get dad movies that are basically, when you get really old here, like Die Hard or Tango and Cash or, James Bond or something. But then you get these movies like this, like the other movies I mentioned, or this, where they're just really good movies, but they're also just right there for the type of guy who wants that dad movie, so that's vibe for you. So what is The Order? The Order, first of all, it stars Jude Law as Terry Husk. It's got Nicholas Hoult as Bob Matthews. It's got Mark Maron in a small but memorable role as, Alan Berg. These are all real people, by the way, from the 70s, early 80s. I think it was 70s, early 80s. I forget. And then Ty Sheridan as Jamie. And once again, you'd be like, whoa, those are a lot of names. I never even heard of this movie. Yeah, this movie got terribly marketed. And I'm not sure if they just didn't know when to put it out. I don't know if they thought, is this supposed to be an awards movie or is this just supposed to be an entertainment movie? When do we release it? It's not really a summer movie. I don't know. I feel like this could have easily been an early fall award season drop, even though it wouldn't have been probably up for a bunch of awards. It could have been up for some, and it definitely, I think, would be more received by people who are kind of in that mode. Like if you're in the mode of, I want to see serious awards level movies, like they all start dropping in the fall, and you see this movie come along, you might give it a little more attention than if you just kind of silently drop it and then put it on a streaming service a little while later. By the way, I saw this on Hulu. That's where it is right now. Definitely worth a watch. Now, the basic idea of this is you've got the Jude Law character. He is FBI, and he's kind of trying to figure out a string of kind of armored car and bank robberies that are going on in the Northwest. And this is going to be happening in like Seattle, Idaho, Spokane, all around those areas. There's kind of this string of possibly connected, like I said, armored car and or bank robberies. And they're kind of connected by the fact that there's these diversionary bombs that are set off nearby. And then when that people are, the cops and everything are responding to the bomb, the members that are actually doing the heist will go to the nearby bank or get the armored car, and they will do the robbery when, a bunch of resources are being pulled away to this bombing nearby. And this stuff really happened, by the way, like I said. Well, what Jude Law discovers really quickly, I think if he's over in Idaho, and he discovers there's nearby this very well-known kind of a white supremacist, neo-Nazi sort of a compound. And this is the beginning of the era of things that kind of led to like militias and all that kind of stuff. These kind of real American sort of white supremacist adjacent kind of terrorist-y sort of groups started rising up a ton in the 90s especially, and up into current day national politics. But whatever, we will go beside that. In this case, he discovers that they're nearby, and he discovers that there is a splinter group that may be called the Order that is doing these other crimes that I talked about at the beginning. Nicholas Hoult plays a local police officer, kind of a deputy, who kind of has an idea of what might be going on, and no one's really taking him seriously. So he kind of ends up pairing up with Jude Law. And this movie is just super effective because it's not only giving you kind of a historical events, historical crime kind of a thriller, but it's giving you these great character pieces with this FBI agent. And like I said, like with Nicholas Hoult as this kind of right-wing kind of a pseudo new leader of this kind of offshoot crime, neo-Nazi, white supremacist subgroup. And he's almost unrecognizable. Once again, Nicholas Holt's doing a great job just being different in every role he gets and just knocking it out of the park every time you see him. And I was quite amazed by him. And Jude Law is great as kind of the older, more seasoned, tired, but, intelligent, sharp FBI guy. And then the standard tropey, younger, ready to rock, by the books cop kind of kid. And they don't have a problem in this movie also just letting you sit with different characters on both sides. You get to spend a fair amount of time with the Nicholas Hoult white supremacist side and a fair amount of time with the Jude Law side. And you get to really kind of get to know and feel the characters. So when various violence goes down, there are some stakes there. And then the whole, like I said, the Alan Berg character played by Mark Maron was also a real character, is a very interesting kind of a sub story too, which news radio was somewhat was it news radio? Talk radio? I think it was talk radio. What was that movie? I can't remember the exactly name of the movie, but you know what I'm talking about. Oliver Stone, I believe, made it. And the events in that were loosely based on the events of Alan Berg in real life. And the one thing I would say about this is, for people who are like, this sounds kind of cool and interesting. I didn't really know about this. But the importance of this event is kind of underestimated, I think, because this event, this criminal activity, this kind of subculture rising attempts to kind of really combine terrorism and crime and white supremacy and militia ideas, it really became very influential. The events of this kind of really led closely to Ruby Ridge. And for those who don't know Ruby Ridge, look that up. And Ruby Ridge really led closely to Waco. And Waco led to Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma City led to a bunch of everything else that's happened in the last 25, 30 years. So if you want to kind of know what the rise of this kind of anti-establishment, militia, really hard right, more of a violent version of these kind of philosophies, then this is kind of one of the seminal events that happened in American history in the last, 30, 40 years. So yeah, solid, really good movie. Check this one out. I'd probably go 4 stars on this, maybe 4.5. I mean, it's hard to go below 4.5. I think I originally went for 4 stars, but this is a movie, great movie. I'm going to go 4.5 stars on this. It's definitely worth checking out. So that is what I've got for you this week. Look forward to next week. I think we've got a new David Mamet movie, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but I thought he said that we did. I think we have a few interesting movies coming up next week, and I want you to check those out. So I'm going to record now a short spoiler for The Surfer. You may or may not hear it on this Patreon. If you do, enjoy. If not, I'm sure in a year or two you'll hear it if you want to find it. All right, guys. Thanks again. I'm going to be crawling back into the attic after I do that quick spoiler for The Surfer.